Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Tyrone back with Tech Life. And today, T Mobile actually presented at three different conferences. So the first one was the video I made this morning, Bank of America conference. Peter Osvaldik, John Fryer were at that event presenting. Then later this afternoon, there was the Citi Global Technology Media Telecommunications Conference that the COO was presenting at for T-Mobile. He is, per the succession planning, going to be Mike Sievert's successor. He's going to take over the CEO role. And then Mike Sievert himself also presented at a different conference that I'm going to try to get a hold of a link or a script somewhere. I don't know where that one was located at, but I did see that earlier that he was also at a conference discussing the challenger, the champion. So, but for this video, we'll talk about the Citi Global Technology Media Conference. I was able to tune into that one. Just quickly, briefly, this was asked at several conferences. This was also asked during the earnings call interviews, right? There have been reports that Mike Sievert is leaving T-Mobile, right? And they keep asking him about it. And I don't want to say they're downplaying it, but they're just referring to the succession planning. That's how they've been deflecting, right? If you read between the lines, I will give it to you bluntly. Yes, he is leaving T-Mobile. His contract is over, I think it's 2028, if I remember correctly. He is not going to extend that beyond that time, right? That's why the COO is already here now. The COO is learning. He's been a part of the company on the board since like 2000, I think 15 or 16. And he's here now, hands-on, meeting the team, getting to know everyone, and learning the ins and outs of the company, right? And say if Mike Sievert even decided to leave earlier than the 2028 target, let's say he does next year, I think he knows enough now that T-Mobile wouldn't skip a beat, right? And that's what Mike Sievert was saying with the whole succession planning. He wanted to recruit someone that's going to take over and understand the Un-carrier and understand the strategy and what they want to do moving forward. And I think they've accomplished just that. So at this conference, he talked about, right, he talked about the Dish and the EchoStar deal with AT&T. That was a very, very interesting segment there. They talked about the 600 spectrum. He did say that the 600 spectrum is the home for T-Mobile, right? Because T-Mobile is the only one that has that broadly deployed radios, panels. It's at scale. It's at massive scale, right? But he did say, just reading between the lines, he did say, was that necessarily the best way they could have spent the money? And he said no, right? You're at that point where you say, okay, 23 billion, that's a lot of money, right? Not saying that T-Mobile was going to get the deal or anything like that. And I don't think he meant to say that in his remarks. But he said there is a time where you look at, okay, I can get the spectrum, but is it more efficient if I just deploy densification, more sites? And the way the deal went clearly is, it went to AT&T. I told you guys in another video, I heard rumblings that T-Mobile was a part of the initial conversations on the 600, and they simply said no, right? I said that when the deal was first announced for AT&T, right? And T-Mobile is simply deciding to stay disciplined and be financially smart, right? So T-Mobile saying, pretty much saying, reading between the lines, we can densify for the time being if we need to, if that really became like a situation where they needed to do that, right? But for now, they have enough coverage, he said. They have enough capacity on the mid-band. The 600 layer is plenty nationwide for now. And just to get that extra 5 megahertz, 10 in some markets, 20 in a very, very few areas, it just probably wasn't going to be value accretive much, right? So there's still a possibility, right? Just listening to the Bank of America conference this morning, there's still a possibility that they may entertain a swap, spectrum swap, if it makes sense, right? That's what Peter Osvaldik said. They would be open to it. But of course, they're going to say that. They're going to be open to listen to AT&T for anything that they may want to bring to the table in terms of a spectrum swap. But if it's not value accretive and it doesn't make sense, T-Mobile probably wouldn't entertain it much after the initial conversation. So 700 A block, keep that in mind. T-Mobile does not own that spectrum nationwide. The A block was purchased from Verizon, if you guys remember, and T-Mobile missed several licenses that they still didn't have any low band in. That was fixed once they got the 600. I know for a fact there's a county that is in Texas, and it's right when you cross into I-20 heading towards Midland, that even in that county, T-Mobile had no low band even after they acquired 700 A block from Verizon. They didn't get low band into that area until they closed on the 600 megahertz auction. And I'm sure that was the case for other parts of the country as well. So the 700 is interesting because even though it would be considered a swap, it still wouldn't be a fair swap because T-Mobile doesn't own nationwide 700. So that'd be something AT&T would probably look at very, very closely and how that deal would work out. This is just my opinion. I don't think they're going to work anything out. I think it's just, it might require some cash on top because 700 is not nationwide. So I just don't see that really working out. And T-Mobile has plenty of low band, contiguous low band for them to continue to be successful on their own. So I don't think they entertain that too much. And I think they're just going to move forward with, like what the COO said, with the densification, which is probably going to be much cheaper and more value accretive for the company because they can sell FWA off of the fallow capacity that densification brings. So he did say as well, T-Mobile is approaching a very successful part of the journey, right? They've been enjoying a lot of success early on, but it wasn't backed off of having the best network, right? And during the time where they were growing and successful, they were the fourth last network. So now they're moving into the phase, what Mike Seaver called Challenger to Champion, where they're moving at an incredible pace, right? Growing the company, growing other segments, while now having to be able to spread the message that they have the best network. And they are not stopping, right? They're going to double down on that. You guys will see that soon. It's going to be everywhere. It's going to be something that T-Mobile does that is the biggest messaging, from what I've been told, that you'll ever see from T-Mobile, because they want every single consumer to know across the nation that they have the best network. That's T-Mobile's words, not mine. And they're going to push that down consumers' throats. And they are good at it. I'll be very honest. If you guys saw early on carrier days, what they were pushing into the market was crazy. They really, if we're being honest, they really didn't have the network to back it up. If we're being honest, right? During the time when they were having all that growth and John came on board and he became the CEO, they really didn't have the network to pull that off, but they did it anyway. Right? They were a pure mid-band network. They had no low band. Penetration was ugly. Reach was bad, but they did it anyway. And because of their messaging, their strategy, their go-to market, how differentiating their marketing was, it actually worked out for them. So then they started to grow financials. They were able to invest. And here we are today, right? So if they take that same playbook and keep some of that spirit alive, they're going to be a nuisance for Verizon and AT&T, unlike those two have ever seen before. There has never been a time, and I can't stress this enough, there has never been a time in the wireless industry that Verizon and AT&T will face a network that is as competitive as the one that T-Mobile is building and has built, them two will be competing against. And they have never faced a competitor that had purchasing power that can compete against what Verizon and AT&T have today. They have never, ever had that before. Sprint couldn't do it much. T-Mobile standalone couldn't do it. Dish couldn't do it. Verizon and AT&T have never felt anything like that. And that's what he was stressing today. He said, we're building digital platforms. We're able to invest into that. We still want to offer the store experience. We don't want to build T-Life in the digital platform based off of cost cutting. We want to build it because it's something that we want to offer as an option to our customers. And we all know, reading between the lines, they're going to eventually close stores and people will get laid off from that. But they're just trying to build a platform, and that's where everyone is heading, right? AT&T is going that direction. Verizon's going to go that direction. T-Mobile is just going to it first. So that's just something that he was stressing about, right? He was saying, emphasizing it, that this network that T-Mobile is building is going to be able to compete against anything that Verizon and AT&T throw at it. And in any environment, and they've said this plenty of times before, if it's a high switching, low switching environment, in terms of the switching pool, T-Mobile is fine with any environment. They will come out ahead of the competition, right? He did say they favor a higher switching environment because it gives them more exposure in the market, right, to grow and gain more perception. But even if it's a lower switching environment, they still come out ahead. They still grab most of the switching pool. So that's a big deal. Also, one thing that both emphasized today, the premium plan, which is very interesting, right? Kind of contradicts what some people say about Verizon, right? People say people are leaving Verizon because they're priced too high. They keep inching up in price. Their top plan is too high. But T-Mobile is saying the opposite. T-Mobile arguably has the most expensive plan, but T-Mobile says, just versus a year ago, the Go 5G Next plan, they're saying 50% more people are choosing the Beyond experience over just a quarter. Just this past quarter, from Q2 to Q3, I believe is what they were referencing, they are up 50% of people choosing the top tier, or as they call it, self-selecting, up to the highest plan on the rate card. And I think it's up 2 times or 4 times more than what people were choosing the Go 5G Next versus a year ago. And that is the most expensive plan in the industry. So I don't know if it's pricing related, right? Some people are really telling me that it's the network. It's Verizon's network. They still have too many sites missing without C-band, and the tier 2 and tier 3 markets aren't really moving along as quickly as some thought. I don't know, right? I'm just telling you guys what people are telling me, but like I said, there's just too many negative experiences, right? The timing for the outage was bad. Then coming off the outage, you're going to get hit with an increase on your bill, and then people are dealing with bad customer service experience, right? So all of that added up is just not a great experience. So that's just a few things that they talked about today. Moving forward, we're going to see a lot of greenfield builds for T-Mobile. That's a lot of rural expansion. From the video this morning, the U.S. Cellular integration is accelerating. It's moving along faster than they anticipated. Like I said, they always under-promise, over-deliver. That's something that they do. They're going to get, I think, $400 million of service revenue additions just in this quarter, Q3, from the U.S. Cellular deal. The overall acceleration is like $1.2 billion of synergy savings. T-Mobile knows how to do this better than anyone. They integrated a national carrier in Sprint. So I don't doubt it, right? They have the expertise. They did it before, so I can't doubt it, right? We just got to watch them work and do what they do. So I think 6 months in, there's going to be a lot of updates on the US Cellular integration. I think the cell sites are going to fly left and right. They're going to be able to do that very, very, very quickly. And then it's going to be BAU, business as usual, right? And then they're going to start really selling into that US Cellular footprint. Very likely having to further expand the coverage as more sites are needed. And then they're going to look to build off of that momentum. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Like, share, subscribe if you're new. Follow my social media outlets. This is Tyrone with Tech Life. See y'all in the next one. Peace.